You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
This is TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network, a weekly audio safari that features the newest in paranormal discoveries while highlighting the latest and not to be missed TruthFunder.com projects. For truth seekers and true believers, this week's TruthFunders starts now.
Greetings, bonjour, hola, welcome, hello. This is TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network. My name is Art Webb. I'm your host for this weekly look at TruthFunders.com and everything that is the paranormal, metaphysical, universal, and essentially good. It is about the light here. Joined always, as I am today, by Mark Schwartz, the CEO of TruthFunders. Greetings, Mark.
Hey there, Art. What's going on, man? How are you doing?
Doing very well. I'm sitting in the middle of a freak rainstorm here in Southern California, as I was just discussing with you. It's moments before we went on the air here, and I do want to say up front that if I fall off of the show for any reason, if all of a sudden you say, "What do you think, Art?" and then there's just crickets, it's because the power went out because we're having power fluctuations. So heads up, I might go away, but that's okay. You can handle it.
We'll miss you.
You're a big boy. You're a big boy. You can take care of it.
Yeah, it's been a crazy week, man. I'm glad we get a chance to talk, and I'm glad we get a chance to talk to everybody out there.
There's a big eclipse happening this week. Are you aware of this big eclipse that's happening? It's supposedly, if you're into astrology and all that, there's a pretty major convergence taking place rather soon here in the next couple days.
Yeah, no, I had no idea. Crazy things happen when there's an eclipse. There's three things happening that make this eclipse super significant. I'm going to look it up. Hold on one second. You talk. All right. So here we are, TruthFunders Radio. This week I'm coming to you from my nerd lair as always. What's new up in the office here? I just framed some Mad Magazine's covers from the 1960s. So those are up on my wall. Really cool thing, actually. I don't know if anybody out there smokes or doesn't smoke or uses vapor cigarettes. But
what about vapor cigarettes with marijuana in them?
I don't know about that. I don't know anything about that.
I do.
So Mad Magazine, I was reading this article. It was from a 1969 issue, and it was when they started realizing smoking was bad and people shouldn't be smoking. So this article was about all these different ways on how to get over smoking if you still want to smoke. And they came up with all these different contraptions. One of the contraptions they came up with, and as a joke in this article, was this cigarette that steamed up and got really hot and blew steam into your mouth.
Really?
And it felt like you were actually smoking, but you're smoking water and you blow out steam.
Is this real or is this a parody from Mad Magazine?
This was a parody from 1969 from Mad Magazine. And they said, that with the lights off, it feels like you're actually smoking. But I thought it was hilarious because the truth is, so much time has gone by, and now that's exactly what vapor cigarettes are. It's when people smoke the vapor cigarette.
Is that true?
No,
is it water?
It's glycerin, but filled with nicotine. But
like
it's essentially water. It's essentially water, and it steams up. And it gets really hot, and it pushes the steam, the vapor, into your throat. They're nicotine juices, so they're made of glycerin. They're also made of vegetable glycerin. So there's two kinds you can get. The vegetable glycerin is more of an organic type. It's like vegetable oil, basically, that's burning. And the other one is just regular glycerin. But it's really weird because with the changes of smoking and doctors say that this is way better for you than smoking a cigarette is. It also doesn't have all the crazy chemicals and everything. But at the same time, there's a lot of nicotine and lobbyists like Marlboro, the big heavy hitters. And they are sending lobbyists to Washington because it's affecting their business. It's actually starting to affect the sales of cigarettes on top of the no smoking campaigns and everything else. And so they're trying to get cigarette companies are trying to outlaw, all this vapor stuff that's going on. So they're pushing laws down in Washington, and it's something that's interesting, and I'll be curious to kind of watch it and see where this goes.
It's the eclipse of the equinox.
There we go.
That's happening.
Sorry, I went on my tangent.
But it takes place on the 20th, and it's just universally, there's just supposed to be crazy energy like taking place right now. March 16th through the 22nd, it's going to be super intense. So if things are going on in your life and surprises are happening and all that, it's because of the eclipse that will be taking place this week. Hey, I want to give out the phone number for IRN, which is 888-919-2355. If you want to call TruthFunders Radio and talk to Mark and myself, 888-919-2355. And let's talk a little bit about our guest and ESP, because ESP is going to be the primary topic of conversation this particular episode of TruthFunders, and it is it's a fascinating one, and one we haven't actually had a chance to touch on much yet since we started doing the show.
Yeah, we've mostly been doing, UFOs. I'd love to get some ghost action going on here. But what's really great, so our guest, his name is Erick Williams, and we're going to bring him on in just a second, and I'll let him sort of explain a little bit and give you a bio about himself and about the project that he's bringing to TruthFunders. But what's really cool about Erick is that Erick is a listener. So he first heard about TruthFunders Radio when we were on the Dark Matter Radio Network, and we were promoting on Jimmy Church's show, and he heard about us and contacted us and had this idea. He's a psychology professor, and he had this idea for this experiment about ESP. And this is what I love about TruthFunders, because people like you that are out there listening right now can hear us and get inspired to go onto truthfunders.com and create a project or come up with an idea for a project, and we'll make it happen. We'll try to get it working. We'll try to get the cash flow that you need in order to move it and get it out the door and make it happen. Now, we're still brand new, so there's a lot of growth we have to do. So we really are relying on you to go to the site, check it out, and share all the projects, and donate if you have a chance, or just check them out and share them on your Facebook wall. But what's really great about Erick is the fact that he is a listener, just like you out there, and came to us with this project, and we made it happen. And what I kind of want to talk to Erick about too is... Let me
interrupt you for 1 second. I do want to say something. You just hit on something that reminded me. Every guest that we've had on so far has been somebody of like predominance in the entire like paranormal realm, and this is the first guest that is a regular human being like you and I, and like the listener out there. And not everyone that participates in TruthFunders, it just goes to show how easy it is for anybody to get involved. You don't have to be a celebrity in the paranormal world in order to be successful with TruthFunders, and that's what's really cool about this story. And hopefully we will be featuring much more of these in the future.
Absolutely, and I totally agree, Art. And our goal to create this amazing network where people can go create projects and then have this directory of all the paranormal radio shows out there, that will help people like Erick kind of reach out to those different radio stations and different networks and say, hey, I am creating this project on TruthFunders. I'd love to talk to you about it or be a guest on your show.
And these are the ones that I'm most excited about too. I mean, as cool as it is to have like the Jesse Marcel's on and stuff like that, like these are the ones that are going to come out of nowhere, that are going to be the really super cool ones that just kind of take you by surprise with what people are coming up with, because this is where the original ideas are coming from, I think.
Absolutely. And also another really cool thing about Erick is that he, we're gonna touch base a little bit on what it's like to listen to online radio, and who is listening. You out there that's listening to this show right now, we'd love to hear from you too. Not the band, but you. Because, if you want to give the number again, Art, we want to make this a call-in show. If Bono
calls in, I'll pay you $50.
Okay, let's make that happen. If Bono calls in, I don't need your $50.
Actually, I won't give you $50. I'll donate $50 to charity, because that's what Bono would prefer.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we'd love to hear from you. If we talk about something today and it touches you or strikes a chord in you, don't hesitate. Just give us a call. Break into our conversation. We'd love to talk to you. So the number again, Art, if you could bring it to the public.
It is 818-919, or I'm sorry, 888. God, I hate living in the 818 area code. You keep doing that. You do. It's because I live in the 888 area code, so I'm constantly...
you live in the 818 area code.
I'm also super dyslexic. I don't know if you're familiar with that as well. 888-9... It's because it's 919. It's just screwing with my brain. 888-919-2355. 888-919-2355. Thank you, MJ. I appreciate that.
Now, without further ado, let's bring on Erick Williams. Erick, are you there?
Yes.
Oh,
wow! Hey, wow! You're like
She's like a kamikaze pilot of sound.
Oh my gosh, that was so loud.
I have no idea why, but I will talk softly and hold the phone farther away.
If you could put it on the other side of the room, that might help.
It sounds like it.
No, that's good. You're good now.
That's
you're good now.
That's
good.
Okay.
All right, great.
Hi, Erick. Thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. How are things on the other coast?
Are you? So we're on the left coast. You're on the right coast, then, right? Because it's the right place to be, right, MJ?
I am. I'm in Maryland.
Yeah. East Coast.
Oh, I hear Connecticut's really good this time of year. Just kidding.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
It was a bad joke. I was just making.
Oh, okay. That's well, it's cold and it's supposed to snow tomorrow night. Probably a little different from your weather.
Yeah, it's about 80 over here and sunny.
Oh my! You wouldn't mind a little bit of that. It's been a long, cold winter.
You know, we haven't had any snow this winter, so I would happily take on a little snow or rain. That would be nice.
You know, climate change is a very real thing, and it is insane to me that some people still will say that it's not, because like here on the West Coast, I mean, yeah, you guys are inundated with snow and blizzards and cold, and you're getting more and more and more of it each winter. Here we have California is going to run out of water in 1 year. I was just reading a news story today. Like, it is such a drought here, and there's so much heat that the juxtaposition between the two is insane.
Yeah, and your drought is projected to continue.
Oh yeah, it's not gonna rain anymore. Like we've seen none this particular winter season, quote unquote. We have seen literally none. It's
drops.
It's crazy. I mean, the climate is changing. It's an ice age. We're entering a second ice age. I'm telling you. Said it here first.
Well, I heard that in the 70s when I was a teenager. That's why when I talk to my students, I say, you hear people talking about global warming, but in the 70s, we were supposed to be in an ice age by now, and we'd all be living in Florida, and we're supposed to run out of oil in the early 80s. So
that's about 50 years too late. Yeah,
if you wait long enough, the predictions change.
There you go.
Or they become true.
That's true.
So Erick, for everybody that's out there, we'd love to hear your story, a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you came across TruthFunders and what your project is.
Well, I came across TruthFunders primarily because I love radio. I watch zero TV. I have two sons that watch TV, but I don't. And I think, probably about 10 years ago, I started listening to XM. And then I realized that there was a lot of internet radio that I didn't have to pay $10 a month for.
There you go.
I love radio, and I really particularly like talk shows. And but you sort of get tired of the political ones pretty quickly. They're so angry and polarized.
And yell, and they're just pissed, and nobody wants to be around that kind of bad attitude constantly.
I don't enjoy it. But I had been a fan of Art Bell when he was on terrestrial radio, and
you're in good company.
I just tripped across dark matter, and I started listening to that, every evening, and I enjoy the shows, and the topic overlaps psychology. Now, I come at it from a slightly different angle. I'm a psychology professor. I've done quite a bit of experimental work earlier in the 80s and early 90s, and that was all funded by NIH. So that was really nice.
And what's NIH?
Yeah, what is it?
I was doing drug studies with rats, and
what kind of drugs? We're talking my stuff here. What kind of drugs?
Actually, back then, it was a new drug. It was something called Xanax. And
interesting.
So I was doing dose effect curves and studies with rats to find out, how do you get the most effect, with the least amount of drug?
And what did you find?
Oh, that it's about half of what doctors usually prescribe.
For Xanax is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's alprazolam Xanax, yeah. And then, but I like experimental psychology, and I'm not afraid of topics that, that some of my peers might shy away from. If you talk about an unexplained phenomenon, you can keep their attention. But if you use words like paranormal, their eyes roll.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
I know I got a quick question here. What are your thoughts on LSD? Very quickly, just as from experimental.
Yeah, I would personally be afraid of it because
I love it.
Because
anything the best thing ever.
Anything that can make you hallucinate can make you do something. I mean, I went to college in the mid '70s at the University of Maryland, and there were more than a few people that took LSD and thought they could fly or stop cars and got killed. So I guess I'm a little risk averse, so I don't know.
Awesome. Hey, Mark, what were you going to ask?
Oh yeah, well that's interesting. I love hearing about all the background, his psychology background. And so yeah, more on your psychology background. What are you doing these days? You're a professor of?
I'm full time. Matter of fact, this semester, very full time. I'm teaching 2 extra classes. So I have 7 classes, 206 students. I had 3 lectures today. That's why I was
thanks
surprised
for making the time to join us on the show. Then you probably exhausted.
Oh no, I find this exciting. As a matter of fact, my voice to me feels weak from all the lecturing. And you guys were saying I sounded very loud.
Let me ask you, what do your students think of the paranormal? Do you ever discuss it with them, or do you just stick straight to normal psychology?
No, I do discuss it with them, but I was thinking about, on my drive home this evening, I was thinking about the show, and then I wanted to point out that each year, the part of the general psych book that touched on they call it pseudoscience / paranormal, got smaller and smaller, and then the publisher brought us the edition for this fall, and it's not in it at all.
So this is the first year that it doesn't even exist anymore.
No, it doesn't even mention it. But I think that they should know about it, and they should think about it. They should decide what they believe themselves. I'm a big proponent in critical thinking. As a matter of fact, I'm very careful to never tell my students to think anything. But there is one exception, and that has nothing to do with psychology, but it's sort of close. It's politics. I encourage them not to belong to a party. You don't need someone to tell you how to think. Do your own thinking. And the same thing applies to paranormal and unexplained phenomena. To decide what you think. If people around you think that it's nuts, well, good for them. Let them think it's nuts. You go decide what you think. You research it, you talk to people, you think about your own experiences, and then, decide on what works for you. Be a party of one. So they do like to talk about it.
Yeah, it's did we lose you, Art? Are you still there? I think we might have.
Like something just happened.
Yeah, I think we might have lost Art, but that's okay. Let's just keep going. So it's really interesting. So it's a party of one, and I think we all have that mindset, especially people who listen to this show and who listen to any of the paranormal radio stations. So like IRN is really cool, and they're their own entity as far as, they're easy to find. If you type in paranormal into TuneIn, that's how I listen to a lot of shows, is through the TuneIn app. Do you use TuneIn, or do you? Yeah.
Well, when I'm at home, I just directly go to it on the laptop, and on my phone I use TuneIn.
I find it really interesting how people come across the different networks and the different radio stations, because I find that more and more people are not listening to terrestrial radio. And you and I were talking about this a little earlier today, how everything is so cookie cutter on terrestrial radio, and they have managed to sort of gut what was fun about radio, which was these, you would drive from town to town back in the 70s, even 80s, even early 90s. You would go from town to town, and you would hear different DJs on different stations playing music that they like to listen to. And it was sort of a little personality that came out in each individual station. And now I feel... Exactly. And nowadays it's like the big Clear channels and other big corporations of the world have sort of taken over the radio stations. They only play a particular set of music. They have the same radio DJs from coast to coast that they just kind of cut out and put in. Some stations are different, but for the most part, it's so cookie cutter. And to find the new stuff, the cool stuff, you really have to go online in order to discover new shows. And there's just an incredible amount of radio shows.
Well, as I was telling you earlier, that's what younger people are doing. And when I say younger, our traditional students are 17 to early 20s. And, you watch what they're doing because that's probably what the future is going to be. They're not listening to terrestrial radio. And if they want music, they're, making their own playlists. And if they want to listen to talk radio, they're listening on their smartphones or on their tablets.
Yeah, I think it's incredible, and it is the future, and that's what's so exciting about being on a station like this, and having a radio show is that we can give a little bit of a throwback to those old times. And I encourage anybody who's out there to go ahead and call in if you have thoughts about listening to online radio versus terrestrial radio. If one makes you happy or one makes you angry, what are your thoughts? Go ahead and call in. And I don't know, MJ, if you're there, you can give out the number. Otherwise, let's see here. You can call in, and the number is somewhere. 888 something. I know it's that because earlier we were making fun of Art's dyslexia, as he kept saying 818 instead of 888. Let's see here.
Mark, are you there?
888-919-2355. That's 888-919-2355. If you want to call TruthFunders and talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on terrestrial radio versus web radio, and how do you listen, and how did you get to know IRN? Eric and I would like to hear it, and so would Art, if Art's back yet. I don't know. I guess not. So I guess there's a huge storm somewhere in
it sounds
LA.
Like it.
Yeah, it's nuts. So
at least they're getting some rain.
Absolutely. So yeah, I want to go ahead and talk about your project. And MJ, if someone's here or if somebody wants to talk to us, go ahead and just shoot them through. But let's go ahead and talk about your project and what you're trying to accomplish here, Eric. Okay. So you came up to TruthFunders and you found out who we were by listening to internet radio, and you went ahead and you contacted me, and from there we started kind of working on your project.
Yes.
So yeah, tell the world sort of what is your project about, and what are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, it's a fairly straightforward and project. As a matter of fact, some of the feedback I've gotten from folks, which is useful to me, is especially the people that are very active in the field, people that describe themselves as mediums and psychics, is that this is so simplistic, but this is science. This is how science works. It's inductive. So in my case, I thought I'll isolate one variable, personality, and I'll match people. I'll match one group by personality. I'll have people that are very similar trying to send images, these Zener cards, which I know are kind of old school, back and forth.
So the Zener cards, can you explain? It's a little bit like Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah, there's 5 cards, and they have very distinct symbols, wavy lines, a star, a circle. So there's 5 choices. So you would expect by chance to have a 20% accuracy, right? So I'll have one group of people that are matched by personality type, and then I'll have another group that are randomly assigned. So I'm looking for any effect. I'm looking for a differential effect. But more than anything, I want to generate more questions so that the research can become more complex and get to the level that it's a little more exciting, a little sexier. But it's a good place to start because while I can't quite articulate it, I can see a neurological basis for ESP. I don't see why it's not possible. So to me, it's simply it's unexplained. So for me, it's a really fun and exciting place to start.
And you're asking people, so currently you're just trying to get $1,200. That's your goal. And the key is to not, you can probably do that yourself because it's $1,200, but the key is to kind of do this with the community and bring the community in with you. So you have that $1,200 goal, and it's a pretty, it really isn't a lot of money. And so if people go ahead and go to www.truthfunders.com, and if you scroll down, you'll see Personality Similarity Effect ESP. And you can go ahead and click on that project. You'll see some awesome Zener cards laid out there, and you can learn more about Erick's project. So yeah, and you've already raised $180 towards your goal, and you still have 42 days left of your campaign. So it's going to keep going, and hopefully, we can get the word out and get the finances that you need to really make this project a success. Now,
what I like about Truth Funders is that rather than trying to find $1,200 in one place, you can have 1,200 people donate $1. Or, do you know what I mean? If lots of people donate $2, $3, $4, $5, then all of these projects, will be realized. And, a lot of the most fascinating research comes, as Art was saying earlier, from where you don't expect. When you think about incredible inventions, when you think about, Marconi working by himself in his basement, that's where some of the greatest science comes from. And those folks struggle with finances just like everybody else does.
Absolutely. We all know that, some of the greatest scientists were broke at the very end of their days. Especially people like Tesla. They made, an incredible life's worth of work. And he died with pennies to his name.
I do know that Westinghouse, at the end of his life, they paid for his hotel room where he lived and his food, so that he had. They made sure he had a roof over his head and that he had food and a little bit of spending money because they felt a little bit guilty. Because Tesla was a financier. The man was so laser focused on his research, he just really couldn't manage his money.
And a lot of people are like that. Albert Einstein, he would be working on things, and then he would go ahead and walk outside and not have his shoes on and not have half of his clothes on, and his wife would have to follow him out and say, come back in and dress him, because his brain was just so focused like a laser beam, just concentrated on what was going on in his work.
He never wore socks. He thought that was a waste of time.
Yeah. And he had the same outfit. He had the same outfit, I heard, that he would wear every day so he wouldn't have time thinking about his wardrobe.
But if you're passionate about what you do, like I consider myself very fortunate. If I were wealthy, I would still get up and go teach every day. I just love it. So getting paid is a very nice bonus. But when you're passionate and focused on something, then you do. Some of the details fall by the wayside. My girlfriend gets after me because I'll go 2 days and not eat anything. I'll just forget because I'm so focused on what I'm doing. And it doesn't bother me. I don't mind. I eventually catch up.
Yeah, and I do the exact same thing. And, creating this business has been really tough. It's a struggle. You sit there, you code, you're working with people. You're trying to produce a radio show. You're trying to get work with all the different people who are creating their projects. I get lost in this stuff. And I love people like that with your mindset. And the people listening out there, I know that you guys have the mindset too. There's people that do, and there's motivators. And it's so easy to be working on something and working really hard and miss dinner, miss lunch, miss the whole day's worth of food, just because what you're doing is so exciting and you have such passion for it.
Hey, guess who's back?
Yeah.
Oh, hello there.
I'm back just in time for a break, actually. We have to go take a break, right, MJ? We should do that, yeah. All right, so let's take a break here on TruthFunders Radio, live here on Inception Radio Network. My name is Art Webb. That is Mark Schwartz. And Eric, you've been listening to. I have not been here because of blackouts. We'll talk about it when I get back from the break. Take it away, MJ.
TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network.
Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free. You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again.
You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network.
And we are back on TruthFunders Radio here on the Inception Radio Network. My name is Art Webb, here with Mark Schwartz. Mark, I missed the entire conversation with Erick Williams practically, but I think you guys covered some pretty good stuff, yes?
Yeah, and we actually have more stuff. Eric's still here. We still have more stuff. Actually, while we were on break, I was kind of scrambling because we had lost you, Art. But I went and I checked the chat room, and we have a bunch of questions. So we will answer the questions in the chat room, but we would love to hear your voice. So if you do have a question in the chat room, please feel free to call. What's the number, Art? 888-919-2355. Here's my favorite question so far. Eric, are you aware of remote viewing? And if so, what are your thoughts on the research that was being done by SRI and people like Ingo Swann, Hal Puthoff, Paul Smith? I don't know who any of these names are, but do you?
I am aware of it. There hasn't been any academic research I can find on it. The government is very interested in it. There's a lot of secret stuff that's been done with it. But in terms of what are my thoughts, I generally think that almost anything's possible, and the scientist in me just wants an explanation. So it's plausible. I guess I could put it that way. I'm not, and I also wonder why the results of what the government studies, I believe the CIA, and at least one other agency, that those results are not available to the public.
Remote viewing and astral projection are along the same lines, yes?
Yes. Astral.
I don't know enough about the astral projection.
Astral projection, I believe it's more out of the body experience.
That's
like you're projecting yourself outside of your body and to another plane of existence or other dimensions or other parts of the world. Whereas remote viewing is closing your eyes and being able to see what it is that people are looking for. So let's do a little remote viewing test. I remember they did this, and I know, Eric, you're a fan of Art Bell, and I know, Art, you're a fan of Art Bell. Back in the day, Art had this test where he brought this remote viewer on his show, and the remote viewer was holding an object in his hand, and he said he wanted everybody to close their eyes. So I want everybody in the listening audience to close their eyes and imagine that I am holding something in my hand right now, and I'm staring at it, and I'm feeling it, and I'm looking at it. And I want you to write in the chat room right now what it is that I'm looking at. And I'll let you know in about 5 minutes, after it comes in. I'll let you guys know if it's working. And if any one of you are able to remote view exactly what it is I'm holding and staring at. You can be as descriptive as you want or as simple as you want. Just reach inside yourself, close your eyes, feel it. What am I
was going to say,
at?
are you reaching for yourself was my question.
No, absolutely not. Come on. This is for real.
I can see that coming.
All right.
So this is a cool little experiment on the radio. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eric, here's another question that came through for you. You mentioned that you eventually started listening to dark matter. I presume this includes you hearing about the UFO phenomenon, including UFO abductions. My question is, if so, and with regarding information gathered concerning abductees, has this brought back memories of past patients declaring similar abduction symptoms to you?
Well, wait a minute. What was the last part of the question?
It doesn't really, I think, make a whole lot of sense.
Okay.
With information gathered and concerning abductees, has this brought back memories of past patients declaring similar abduction symptoms to you? I guess have you ever
No, not to me. A psychiatrist, a medical doctor, is more likely to end up with those kinds of folks. I worked with people that were going through bumps in life, anxiety and depression. But there are some really respected names in the field that have psychiatrists that I don't know that they're coming right out and saying that people have been abducting, but what they are saying is that I can't find another explanation, and this patient does not exhibit a disorder. So what does that leave? They describe something. If you're working with someone and they're telling you that aliens came and took them in a spaceship, we have lots of very good tests. We have lots of good techniques to determine if these are simply delusions, if these are hallucinations, if these are dream states and they don't realize it.
I was going to say, what do you think about hypnosis and past life regression and things like that? Do you think that there's any credibility to that practice?
No, I have to say that I'm not real keen on past life regressions. But hypnosis is very useful. It's an extremely relaxed state. People are very, very suggestible in that state. And I've certainly used it in the past to try to get through a wall, working with somebody. But it's still, it's a doorway. And so again, I think with what you're asking me, it's sort of two things. Can you use hypnosis, and do you believe in past lives? And I probably do not believe in past lives, but I do believe that hypnosis is a powerful tool.
And do you think you can use hypnosis like abductions? Do you think hypnosis can be used in abduction or abductees to get information out that they wouldn't be able to necessarily conjure up in a more conscious state?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in any kind of traumatic event, if it's too much for a person, and we could be talking about things, from war to rape, the person will completely repress that material. It is buried. They don't even know it exists. They don't recall the event or anything, or just pieces of it. Hypnosis can can open that door. It can get you to that material, but it requires a very skilled practitioner and a very unbiased one. Because if the therapist wants to find something, they seem to. So you really want a very skilled, usually a psychiatrist that specializes in that wants to help the person, but doesn't necessarily have a belief himself or herself. And then I think that's when you get the best results.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think you make perfect sense. One of the questions I have for you regarding your project, which you can see now at TruthFunders.com. Just go to TruthFunders.com, and it is the project that is highlighted up there on the homepage. Correct, Mark?
Yep.
And one of the questions that in kind of your hook here is, can similar people read each other's minds? I want to know, and maybe you guys touched on this while I was off the air, and pardon me if that's the case, but if not, what in your mind is a similar person to another similar person? What are the characteristics that you look for in similar people?
Well, in particular, personality. I have a hunch, and that's kind of how science works, that people with very similar personalities might neurologically also be wired very similarly. And if we can use our brains to transmit to each other, it would be easier, if we had a matched set, if that makes sense. And I decided to use that as a starting point.
Okay, cool. Which makes perfect sense to me. And I wanted to say that I agree with you, and I think you're right, if only because I live it every single day. My wife and I have extremely similar personalities, if we're not cut from the exact same cloth, honestly, and we are constantly reading each other's minds and saying what the other is thinking on hourly basis almost. So I'm really hip to what you're doing here, and I think that you're on to something, considerably real, and you're going down a right path, because it's creepy at times, and we are we're the exact same person, just different genders. So it's interesting that you've kind of stumbled onto this too. How did you stumble onto it originally? What got you down this path as it is?
I think when I used to do counseling, working with clients, after a while, you can almost predict behavior and problems because you've seen that personality type before. And then, I have over 1,000 students a year. And it's, and I often give them a personality test as part of a class, and we talk about that. And if you do this kind of work, it's, I don't think it's ESP, what I'm doing, but you can start to talk to someone and you can start to sort of figure out how they're wired pretty rapidly by their personality. And if you and your wife are very similar, there's two things going on, okay? One, I'm more certain of than the other. One is that your brain is a wonderful probability generator. You know a lot about each other. And your brain is, in its own way, running lots of statistical tests. And you suddenly realize the phone rings and it's her. But that's because you have so much experience and you're so similar that, of course, it's her. The probability is extremely high.
What about when What about when you look at the phone 5 to 10 seconds before it rings?
Well, that's the other possibility, that there really is some sort of transmission between two brains.
Because
and that's what I'm interested in.
Exactly.
That's what I'm interested in. The problem is methodology.
That's happened to me. My experience was I was dating this girl. It's always has to do with some girl. But I was dating this girl, and she was cheating on me. We were together for 2.5 years, and I just had this feeling. I just had it, out of nowhere one night, that something was wrong, that something was out of the norm, And sure enough, I'm thinking like that for about an hour, and then I start getting calls from my friends who are all hanging out with her, in the city in San Francisco. They're all talking and hanging out and texting me, "Whoa, Katie just disappeared with this guy." And I was like, that's crazy, because I felt it. And there was never any, we were so close. We were great friends and all that. And it was all for good, she's still a great friend to me. And I'm off getting engaged now, and this was 10 years ago. I was way younger, but I could feel it happening, and we had no communication about it. But there was something, I knew that something was wrong. And another time, my fiance, she took the dog for a walk, and I was just sitting on my bed reading Mad Magazine, hanging out, waiting around, and suddenly, out of nowhere, I just had this feeling that there was something wrong. So I put on my shoes and I ran down the trail and I started yelling her name. And I was like, hey, hey, and yelling her name and screaming it. And sure enough, I got there and she was completely frazzled. The dog had gotten away. She had gone down into the bay area where the water was, and she was trying to get him to come back. And so, she sort of had handled things by the time I got back, but it was that connection. When you have that connection with someone, it's just easy for you to, I don't know, at least I've definitely had those feelings where something is wrong. It's usually when something is wrong, actually. That's when I get it. Yeah.
Well, I think that when you take those experiences and you multiply them across a planet of 7 billion people, there's too many that just can't be explained to say that it's all just my earlier explanation, that it's just probabilities and putting little pieces together.
That's why
the real problem is, how do you study this? I mean, there aren't any paranormal programs left because nothing paranormal ever happened in a lab.
And that's why I'm so pissed off.
To study it.
I mean, it really pisses me off to hear that they've completely taken paranormal. They've just struck it from all textbooks. This is the year that it's gone. It's almost like they're afraid that we know that people are starting to catch on that there's more to life than meets the eye, and they're afraid of that.
It's more that you can't get something funded if you keep not getting results, and I don't think that's a good reason to quit. I think you have to ask, what's wrong with our methodologies, or is there another angle? And someone is going to figure this out. I don't think it's me, but I don't think 100 years from now this is going to be a question. I think this is going to be answered. And I think past interviews I've told you, or I've suggested, what was magic 200 years ago is science today. And I don't know if you've read Professor Kaku's book, Physics of the Impossible.
I haven't. I've read his latest, but
it's really I
can barely understand that guy when he speaks, let alone what he writes.
I'm sorry.
I saw him give a talk and got his book signed last time he was out in the Bay Area. He's incredible.
He's amazing. Now, he very sneakily, and I don't know if he does it on purpose, talks about the paranormal, but he cloaks it in different terminology. I mean, he has a chapter in Physics of the Impossible about time travel, and that's astral projection, that's paranormal, but he talks about it in terms of physics, in terms of concrete things, in terms of science. He doesn't, and I also just recently found out that he now has his own internet radio show. Did you know that?
Yeah, he's had it for quite some time.
He's one of the brightest people alive, and it's interesting to me that he chose that venue.
Well,
I think that's what we were talking about earlier.
Probably not about the money for him, honestly.
No,
not at all. He's and that's what's so great about him. When I saw him talk, it's so natural what comes out of his mouth and the things he was discussing. He was talking about how UC Berkeley now has an actual system that they can link onto your head, and it can, when you dream, actually record your dreams and come up with images that are based on
images.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh, I know someone that would want that, like in this household, because I night terrors every single night, and I'm told that I cry in my sleep every night, and I'm yelling and screaming.
Night terrors or nightmares? Nightmares are dreams.
Terrors.
Night terrors is when you wake up from stage 4 deep sleep and you're in a terror.
That happens every single night to me. Every single night.
Something flips on your sympathetic nervous system, and you go into fight or flight emergency mode, and you wake up terrified.
Yep, happens every single night. I mean, multiple times a night too.
Hey, and really quickly, I just want to give a shout out to everyone who's participating in the chat room right now. Thank you guys so much. Spaceboy, hey, thank you for listening to us tonight. Everyone out there, Spaceboy has a great song. It's on Truth Funders. He was supporting us. And I think that our guest tonight, Erick Williams, and Spaceboy have even traded a few tweets over their Truth Funders projects. And also I want to give a shout out to, Cruzy, Sky33, Analog Hole. Man, that's a clever name. That's awesome. Marco, and I think Marco thinks we're a bunch of puppets, but that's cool. He likes to say that every week, which is hilarious to me because you love puppets. For what? You love Fraggles.
I love, dude. You know what I just watched the other day? I'm not even kidding you right now. I watched the series finale to Fraggle Rock, and I had no idea how pagan that episode was. It's insane. There's a lot of similarities if you look at Jim Henson's work over his lifetime and like the pagan religion. And that particular episode of Fraggle Rock blew my mind. I said to my wife, I'm going to watch it again. And we watched it all over again. If you look it up online, I forget what the title of the episode is, but it's crazy. Absolutely.
What was the
wild
symbolism? That
we are, you cannot leave the magic. We are all magic. And dude, it's too much to get into. I could spend half an hour talking about it.
You need to write a little blog about that, and we can put it up on Truth Funders, because I'm sure people would want to know about the symbolism in Fraggle Rock. I mean, I would. I'm 35. Totally down.
Maybe, I will totally. Yeah, maybe this week I'll get to that. Hey, we got another question here. By the way, we only got about 8 minutes left with the program. It's flying by this week. But Cruzy, is that Cruzy asks.
Cruzy.
See that? Yeah. Well, for the other listeners, what are your thoughts, Eric, on the grandfather theory of time travel?
My thoughts are the same as physicists, that there is a mechanism in place that simply doesn't allow that to happen. And that's what Professor Kaku says, and it makes sense to me. Because you do exist now, it's not possible for you to not exist. So something would have to prevent you from going in the past and killing your grandfather, because you can't undo existence. No. I think that what we will be able to do eventually is view the past, but not participate in it.
So you can't be Marty McFly and be on stage with your hands starting to disappear while you're trying to play the guitar, trying to be good.
Yeah, I'm guessing not.
Parents don't kiss, and then you just slowly start disappearing away. Yeah, I want that picture, though, the disappearing people. Like, if my brother and sister disappeared on the picture, it'd be good. 888-919-2355 is the telephone number if you want to call Truth Funders Radio. My name is Art Webb, here with Mark Schwartz. Go to truthfunders.com and look at Erick Williams' project, because it's all about ESP and people being able to read each other's minds. You know what your cards remind me of, Eric, is the beginning of is it Ghostbusters, when Bill Murray's doing the test with the kid?
Yeah, they might be, because the Zener cards have been around forever. I don't know who invented them. It's just the standardized set of symbols.
Oh, that's a standardized set of symbols. I had no idea. I thought that you came up with them.
Yeah, and they were invented a long time ago, and they used them in paranormal labs forever. And it's what I'm using. And part of the funding is I need to buy a lot of these sets of Zener cards, and I need to buy a high-speed camera, because I'm interested in the faces of people. If I get let's say a good transmitter or a good receiver, I would like to record their faces at very high speed and then watch it at normal speed and look for little micro expressions and just anything. I'm looking for the next question to be asked.
Do you think that the micro expressions is how they would transmit? So do you think it's ESP, or do you think it's they, like a dog? A dog looks at your face and he's used to your expression and knows that you're about to give him a treat.
No, I don't. I don't think micro expressions would be the mechanism. I think it would be a way of identifying people who have that ability. It'd be like a marker, just like we have genetic markers for things. I mean, the law enforcement uses micro expressions as part of lie detection.
Right.
Yes.
And I think we can use it for other things as well.
That's a good point. That's a very good point, and I do think that you're right that it's not something that's been studied well enough, at least in the way that you're looking to investigate further. And you guys talked about some of the awards, Mark, with the project? Have you touched on that yet?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. So if everybody goes to www.truthfunders.com, you'll go ahead and see on the main page Erick's project, and it's personality, similarity, affect ESP. And if you click on that, you'll see that, he's trying to raise $1,200. He's already raised $180. He has 8 supporters. Seriously, anything helps in order to try to get this project done. I mean, this is a great study to be a part of. We can help to kind of keep the teaching of paranormal and parapsychology and ESP alive, because as Eric was just discussing, they're kicking it out of the textbooks. There's not even a section for it anymore. And we have to keep this kind of research going on, because if we don't support ourselves, then this will disappear. And this is a chance to prove it with a professor that thinks, linearly, but has the ability to think outside the box. But he participates in the linear sort of course of life, which is people actually listen to him, and he has students and
thousands of them.
He's not a crazy wacko.
I have a few that sleep during class, but most of them stay awake.
We're all guilty of that.
Spray them with a bottle, like a cat with a bottle of water. Just.
If I can say something really quick to Analog Hole, whoever that is, that is actually a good explanation as well. If you went back in time and killed your grandfather, you would simply create another universe where you didn't exist. And that's something else. And Kaku has talked about that too. You would just bubble up a new universe.
I think this new universe is bubbling up constantly. Every action and reaction just causes another universe to exist.
I do believe in that. I believe in multiple universes, parallel universes.
There's too much evidence to suggest otherwise at this point, honestly.
Well, and how can there be just one? Because no matter how far you go, you can always go another inch. So you just can't run out of universe.
Multiverse. Mark, we're just about out of time for the week here. We got about 3 minutes left.
Are we done at 7 or 7:30?
Yeah, we're done at the top.
Okay. So real quick, I just want to run down some of the things that Eric's working on. So for $5, you can get your name in the study, and your name will be printed as a donor on any written products in which the project might result. For $10, you get a personalized letter from Eric. For $25, that's like a great donation. $1 helps. $25 is fantastic. You get your own set of Zener cards. So if you want to perform tests and see if you and your friends, have ESP, you can get your own Zener cards. You can get them through Eric here, be helping a good cause, and at the same time be getting your own set to play with at home. I mean, it's a great party game in itself. Seriously, if you're into ESP. For $50, you get a T-shirt and Zener cards. For a $100 donation, you get everything that we just listed and a personal call with Eric to discuss any sort of concept you want about psychology or about the project. And so, do you have anything else you want to add, Eric, before we go today?
No. I would really enjoy talking to people. I think that would be a great way to generate new ideas, and I've greatly enjoyed being on the program.
Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, and thank you to everyone out there for listening this week. Go to truthfunders.com. Follow TruthFunders on Twitter @TruthFunders. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TruthFunders. Did you see that Facebook just ejected a bunch of fans from different Facebook pages for not interacting with them this week?
Yes. It's
deleted
horrible.
Fans. What the? It's not. It's.
It just happened to. Yeah, well, I really want to discuss this kind of stuff because it's really important for people to know in the paranormal industry. And something we didn't touch base on about this week that I really wanted to get in depth on was about, listening to terrestrial radio versus web radio. And, what are your favorite radio shows that are out there? Let's
do that next week. Definitely, let's definitely get on that next week. TruthFunders Radio is every Wednesday on IRN. It's not Dark Matter. Sorry, guys. It's IRN, Inception Radio Network.
IRN. And IRN is incredible. I just wanted to say a great shout out to Joe, MJ, and Bob. Thank you guys so much for having us and helping us. We really appreciate it, and we're so proud to be a part of your station.
We are out of time for this week. Thank you so much, Erick Williams. TruthFunders.com. My name is Art Webb for Mark Schwartz. We will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network.